I would like to go over the assignment. I would like to go over not only what we are doing, but why we are doing it. This is what the web page will look like. As you can see, we have some headings, we have an unordered list, and we have some paragraphs. Not only will you be using the HTML elements that we have learned so far, but you will be adding the HTML5 semantic elements to further describe the contents of your code. So now I will go over what I mean by HTML5 semantic elements with another demonstration. Here I have another web page. This is not the assignment. It has nothing to do with the assignment. It is just a demonstration. On the left I have some code. On the right I have the output of that code. On the left-hand side, we have an H1 element at the top. You should always start your page with a heading level 1 element to describe what the page is all about. However, I have put it inside an HTML5 header element. So I am telling the browser that this is the header of my page. I am giving additional meaning to the content in my page. And that is what HTML5 semantic elements are all about. They're about grouping your content with meaningful tags so that the different parts of your document have a little bit more meaning. Now I have two section elements. I really didn't need them, but it makes sense that in this page, and if you look on the right here, we have a heading. And then we have two areas that we're talking about. So there are two sections here to this document. So in my code, I am going to add a section element around the H2 and the paragraph. I would like to point out that you always have to have a heading element inside a section, preferably an H2. Because we already have an H1 in the header. You need to use your heading level elements in a meaningful sense and use them in order. You can have multiple H2s, multiple H3s, but you can't have an H3 if you don't have an H2. So the section is grouping the H2 and the paragraph, telling the browser that this content is related to each other. It belongs together here. Now I have just added some CSS code, which we will learn later. What I have done was I have placed borders around my three HTML elements, around the header and the two sections. Notice that these HTML elements have no formatting effect in and of themselves. They just group the content. And they stack right on top of each other. They do not affect the display of the page in any way. They are just for meaning. Now I have added a navigation section to my header. Technically speaking, the navigation doesn't have to be inside the header. It can be underneath the header, but it can be in the header. And for this assignment, we are putting the navigation in the header. And we have learned that we use the unordered list to code our navigation links. We will be learning more and more as we go on how to work with navigation. We have the HTML5 nav element, which is enclosing our UL element. Again, it is giving meaning to the browser, telling it that this unordered list is a group of navigation links. As you know, we can have other unordered lists inside our documents. So this is why we are using HTML5 elements, to give meaning to the different parts of the web page. When you go to work in the web development field, you may notice that the web pages do not have HTML5 elements. They may have what is called a div layout. That is what we used before HTML5 to organize our content, this plain div. So when I put a border around my div using CSS, you can see it is the exact same layout as our HTML5 semantic elements. It just puts a box around the content, and there is really no formatting to it. I just want to point this out. In this class, we are using the HTML5 semantic elements. Somewhere else, in a WordPress class, with a template, you may be seeing a div layout. So I want you to know ahead of time what the difference is. Back to the assignment. You will need a header section here to enclose the H1 and the unordered list. You will need a nav element to surround the unordered list. You will need 3 section elements to group the 3 areas here, the introduction, the browser support, and the backward compatibility. And you will need a footer element for the information at the bottom of the page. Typically, we have a header and a footer. All of this goes inside the body tag. The header and the footer belong inside the body. Do not compare it to the human body where we have a head, a body, and feet. It doesn't work that way in HTML. In HTML, all of the code is inside the body, including the header and the footer.